In the vast interconnected tapestry of the cosmos, Earth's humans were largely misunderstood. While officially designated as a Level 2 species by the Intergalactic Federation, a classification that labeled them as developing, peaceful, and of minimal galactic influence, the truth was far more nuanced. Behind closed doors, elder species debated whether humanity's designation had been a catastrophic clerical error. Commander L.R. Way stood at the viewport of the diplomatic vessel Harmony, watching the swirling dance of Proxima Centauri B's rings. The spectacle would normally captivate her, but today her mind was elsewhere. The neural implant at her temple pulsed with an incoming message, the 5th from Earth Command in as many hours. Still admiring the view, Ambassador Tomas Reyes joined her, his weathered face a mask of diplomatic neutrality that had served him well across 3 decades of interstellar negotiations. "It helps me think," Elara replied, her eyes still fixed on the celestial ballet. "Earth is getting impatient. They want answers about the Drasha incident." Tomas sighed, running a hand through his silver-streaked hair. "The Federation Council claims they need more time to investigate. Standard procedure, they say. 63 dead civilians isn't standard," Elara countered, finally turning to face him. The emissary was clearly marked as a diplomatic vessel. The Valkyrie knew exactly what they were firing upon. Perhaps, Tomas conceded. But proving intent in Federation court requires intent. Elara's voice hardened. The emissary was destroyed while in a sanctioned orbit around Valk Prime. Their explanation of weapons system malfunction is an insult to those families. To pretend this was anything but deliberate, Commander Tomas interrupted gently. "I understand your frustration, but remember why we're here. Earth cannot afford an interstellar incident, not when we've only recently gained full membership status." Elara's shoulders stiffened. "With respect, Ambassador, our restraint has limits. The Valkyrie are testing those limits." The ambassador didn't respond immediately. When he did, his voice was barely above a whisper. "The council meeting is in 6 hours. We'll have our answers then." Neither noticed the faint shimmer of a cloaked Valkyrie scout ship hanging in the darkness beyond their viewport, silently observing. Grand Marshal Tyrek Voss of the Valkyrie Ascendancy paced the obsidian floor of his war chamber, tail lashing behind him in agitation. Holographic displays surrounded him, each showing different sectors of Valkyrie space. One display in particular commanded his attention, a real-time feed of the disputed Helios Rift, rich with rare minerals and strategic positioning. The humans still refused to abandon their outpost in the rift. General Ixara reported, her scaled face illuminated by the blue glow of tactical readouts. "They claim prior mining rights established during their pre-Federation era." Tyrek's inner eyelids flickered, a sign of contempt among his species. "Those claims predate their understanding of interstellar law. The rift has been Valkyrie territory for millennia. The Federation Council seems inclined to recognize their claim," Ixara noted cautiously. "The L3 representative has been particularly supportive of the human position." "The L3 are weak," Tyrek growled. "They see something of themselves in these humans, a misplaced idealism, a naive belief in diplomacy over strength." He reached out a clawed hand, manipulating the holographic display to zoom in on the human mining station, embedded in an asteroid at the heart of the rift. Small and unimposing by Valkyrie standards, it nevertheless represented a diplomatic thorn that had grown increasingly irritating. The destruction of their vessel was a calculated message, he said, one they seemed too obtuse to comprehend. Strategic Advisor Zell, standing silently until now, cleared his throat. "Grand Marshal, if I may, our intelligence suggests we may have miscalculated the human response." Tyrek turned, his amber eyes narrowing. "Explain." "The humans have maintained their routine activities, trade, diplomacy, scientific missions, all seemingly unchanged. But our deep space monitors have detected unusual energy signatures at the edges of their territory, and there's been a marked increase in secure transmissions between their military outposts. Preparations for a formal complaint to the Federation, no doubt, Tyrek dismissed. Perhaps, Zell conceded. But historical analysis of human conflict patterns suggests a more concerning possibility. They may be mobilizing covertly. Tyrek laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. Mobilizing. The humans, their entire fleet consists of retrofitted exploration vessels and a handful of genuine warships. Against the might of the Valkyrie ascendancy, they would be annihilated. With respect, Grand Marshal, Zell persisted, human military history shows a pattern of asymmetric response. When conventionally outmatched, they rarely engage in direct conflict when at a disadvantage. You give these apes too much credit, Zell, Tyrek said, returning his attention to the holographic displays. The destruction of the emissary was a necessary demonstration of our resolve. When the Federation Council convenes tomorrow, the humans will have no choice but to relinquish their claim to the rift. Their designation as a Level 2 species gives them little standing in territorial disputes. Zell opened his mouth to speak, then thought better of it. Instead, he bowed slightly and retreated from the war chamber, his unease growing with each step. Admiral Helena Chen stood before the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the subterranean war room beneath Geneva, her posture rigid as she delivered her assessment. The Valkyrie believe we will seek redress through the Federation Council, she stated, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. This presents us with a tactical opportunity that may never come again. Defense Secretary Omar Kabir leaned forward, his bushy eyebrows drawing together. You're proposing we exploit their arrogance. I'm proposing we remind the galaxy why Earth's designation as Level 2 has always been a polite fiction, Helena responded. One the Federation maintains to avoid acknowledging the uncomfortable truth about our species. The holographic display at the center of the table shifted to show the Valkyrie home system, a binary star orbited by 12 planets, 3 of which supported the civilization that had grown into one of the dominant powers in the sector. Operation Silent Response is ready for implementation, Helena continued. Spectre teams are in position near critical Valkyrie infrastructure. Our stealth fleet has bypassed their defensive perimeter using the quantum displacement technology the Valkyrie believe is still theoretical. UN Secretary-General Amara Okafor, who had been listening silently until now, raised a hand. Admiral Chen, before we proceed down this path, I must ask, has every diplomatic channel been exhausted? Helena's expression softened slightly. Madam Secretary, Ambassador Reyes has spent 3 weeks attempting to secure even an acknowledgement of wrongdoing. The Valkyrie High Command maintains the destruction of the emissary was an unfortunate accident. Meanwhile, their military vessels have increased patrols around the Helios Rift, and we've detected energy signatures consistent with weapons testing. They're preparing for expansion, General Mikhail Petrov noted grimly. The emissary was merely a pretext, a way to test our resolve before they make their true move. Secretary-General Okafor closed her eyes briefly, the weight of the decision visibly heavy on her shoulders. When she spoke again, her voice was quiet but firm. Humanity has worked for decades to be accepted into the galactic community. We've presented ourselves as diplomats, traders, explorers, partners in the grand project of civilization. If we reveal our true capabilities now, if we don't, Helena countered, the Valkyrie will continue to escalate. Next time, it won't be a diplomatic vessel, it will be one of our colonies, perhaps even an Earth orbital. The emissary carried 63 civilians, including 12 children. They were scholars, diplomats, cultural attachés, the best of us, sent to build bridges. A heavy silence fell over the room, broken only by the soft hum of the holographic display, as it rotated slowly, showing the Valkyrie worlds in their orbital dance. Very well, Secretary General Okafor finally said. Implement Operation Silent Response. But Admiral, her eyes locked with Helena's, this must be surgical, precise. We demonstrate our capability without civilian casualties. We are not the barbarians they believe us to be. Helena nodded sharply. That was always the plan, Madam Secretary. The Valkyrie will learn that humanity's preference for peace is a choice, not a necessity. As the meeting adjourned, Dr. Eli Santos, director of xenopsychology, approached Helena in the corridor outside. Admiral, a moment, he requested, falling into step beside her. Walk with me, Eli. I have a dozen fires that needed my attention yesterday. I've been reviewing our profiles of Valkyrie leadership, Eli said without preamble. Grand Marshal Tyrek Voss isn't just ambitious, he's a traditionalist who believes in the innate superiority of his species. He may not respond rationally to a demonstration of force. Helena's stride didn't falter. Your recommendation, we need to account for cultural factors in our response. The Valkyrie respect strength, yes, but they also have complex honor codes. Public humiliation could drive them to escalation, rather than capitulation. You're suggesting we need to give Voss a way to save face, Eli nodded. Precisely. Silent response should include an exit ramp, a way for the Valkyrie leadership to withdraw without losing status among their people. Helena paused at the elevator that would take her to the command center. I'll take it under advisement. But remember, Eli, our primary concern is protecting Earth and our colonies. Valkyrie pride comes second. As the elevator doors closed between them, Eli sighed. Humanity's complex relationship with conflict had always been his life's study. They were contradictory creatures, capable of extraordinary compassion and breathtaking violence in equal measure. The galaxy had yet to truly understand what that meant. Ambassador Lena Drey, who had been appointed as Earth's special envoy following the emissary incident, stepped into the cavernous Federation Council chamber with measured confidence. A human of mixed heritage with striking features and penetrating gray eyes, Lena had built her reputation on an uncanny ability to understand alien psychology. The chamber itself was a marvel of interstellar architecture, a perfect dome with walls that shifted subtly to accommodate the atmospheric preferences of each species. Above, the transparent ceiling revealed the spectacular nebula that surrounded Nexus Station, the Federation's neutral headquarters. Representatives from over 30 spacefaring civilizations filled the tiered seating, their murmured conversations creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and subharmonic rumbles. Lena noted with concern that several seats in the observer gallery were occupied by Valkyrie military officers, unusual for what was supposed to be a diplomatic proceeding. At the center of the chamber, the Federation Arbiter, a Mr. Rax Elder, whose translucent skin had faded to pale blue with age, activated the ceremonial chime that signaled the beginning of proceedings. This council convenes to address the formal complaint lodged by Earth regarding the destruction of the diplomatic vessel Emissary in Valkyrie space, the Arbiter announced. His words simultaneously translated through the neural interfaces each representative wore. Ambassador Drey will present Earth's case, followed by the Valkyrie representative. Lena stepped forward to the speaker's dais, aware of the hundreds of alien eyes fixed upon her. She had deliberately chosen to wear traditional Earth business attire, rather than the more flamboyant Federation fashions, a subtle reminder that humans remained connected to their roots. Esteemed representatives, she began, her voice clear and measured. 3 weeks ago, the Earth diplomatic vessel Emissary was destroyed, while in sanctioned orbit around Valk Prime. 63 civilian lives were lost. The ship was clearly identified as a diplomatic vessel, its position was registered with Valkyrie Space Control, and it was engaged in authorized cultural exchange activities. She paused, allowing the translation to reach every member of the audience. Earth has waited patiently for an explanation, for accountability, for reparations to the families of those lost. Instead, we have received only dismissals and deflections. The Valkyrie High Command claims the destruction was an unfortunate accident, a weapons system malfunctioned during a routine training exercise. Lena activated her datapad, and holographic evidence materialized above the console floor: flight paths, communication logs, sensor readings. Our data tells a different story. The emissary was targeted specifically, with weapon systems that were fully operational and manually directed. This was no accident, but a deliberate act of aggression against a Level 2 species that has shown nothing but peaceful intentions since joining the Federation. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Several representatives leaned forward in their seats, examining the evidence with growing concern. Earth does not seek conflict, Lena continued, her voice softening. We have always valued diplomacy, cooperation, and peaceful resolution. We ask only for acknowledgement, apology, and appropriate compensation for the families of the victims. We also request Federation oversight of the disputed Helios Rift region until a permanent resolution can be negotiated. She stepped back from the dais, her piece said. The Valkyrie representative, Sub-Marshal Krex, a towering figure with battle scars visible even through his ceremonial armor, took her place. The Valkyrie Ascendancy regrets the loss of life aboard the emissary, he began, his voice a rumbling bass that seemed to vibrate through the chamber. However, we categorically reject the human characterization of events. The vessel was destroyed during a legitimate defensive exercise, when automated systems detected anomalous energy signatures consistent with scanning activity. Krex's tail flicked dismissively as he continued. If the humans had properly registered their vessel's full capabilities, this tragedy might have been avoided. As for their claims regarding the Helios Rift, his voice hardened. The region has been Valkyrie territory since before humans discovered fission energy. Their attempts to claim it based on pre-Federation activity is a transparent grab for resources. They lack the technology to extract efficiently. The Sub-Marshal turned, fixing Lena with an unblinking stare. The Valkyrie Ascendancy recommends the Council remind Earth of its designation and the appropriate role for Level 2 species in galactic affairs. Their expansion must be contained before their primitive aggression threatens regional stability. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. The arbiter called for a brief recess before deliberations would begin. As the representatives filed out of the chamber, Lena found herself approached by Nara Toll, the L3 diplomat, whose species had been humanity's strongest ally since first contact. Ambassador Dre, Nara Toll greeted her. The L3's luminescent skin pulsing with patterns that conveyed sympathy more clearly than words. The council is divided. Many fear taking sides against the Valkyrie. Lena nodded slightly, and many underestimate Earth's resolve in this matter. Nara Toll's head tendrils quivered, an expression of concern. There are rumors, Lena. Some say Earth's military assets are on the move. Despite your public adherence to diplomatic channels, rumors are the lifeblood of politics, Lena replied carefully, especially during times of tension. As your friend, Nara Toll leaned closer, lowering their voice. I advise caution. The Valkyrie have existed in a state of Cold War with half the quadrant for centuries. They understand escalation better than most. Lena's eyes flickered briefly to her timepiece, a subtle gesture that would have been missed by most observers. Thank you for your concern, Nara Toll. Earth always values the counsel of its friends. What she didn't say, what she couldn't say, was that at that precise moment, Operation Silent Response had begun.
Captain Maya Okonkwo of the Earth Special Forces Unit Spectre floated silently in the void, her tactical suit rendering her practically invisible against the backdrop of space. 50 meters away, the Valkyrie defense platform Vigilant Eye loomed, a massive construction of alloys and energy fields designed to protect Valk Prime's most vulnerable continent from orbital attack.
Her team of 6 operators was dispersed around the platform's perimeter, each positioned near a critical system junction. They had spent 3 days in silent approach, using short-burst maneuvers and the shadow of Valk Prime's third moon to avoid detection. All units in position. Lieutenant Kazuo Tanaka's voice whispered through her neural implant. Awaiting your order, Captain. Maya checked the chrono display in her helmet. The timing had to be precise, synchronized with dozens of similar operations throughout Valkyrie space. Remember, she subvocalized, the implant picking up the words she formed without speaking, non-lethal approaches only. We're here to blind them, not bleed them. 5 acknowledgements flickered across her HUD. Execute in 3, 2, 1. In perfect synchronization, the Spectre team activated their specialized equipment. Maya pressed a device no larger than her palm against the platform's sensor array housing. The quantum disruptor hummed silently, sending carefully calibrated energy waves through the Valkyrie technology. Similar devices were being attached to communication hubs, weapon control nodes, and power distribution centers across the platform. Inside her helmet, Maya watched as her HUD displayed real-time information about the platform's systems. One by one, they began to malfunction, subtle failures that would initially appear as routine glitches, but would compound into complete system failure over the next few hours. Phase 1 complete, she reported. Withdraw to extraction point Alpha. As silently as they had arrived, the Spectre team detached from the platform and engaged their personal propulsion systems, accelerating away from the vigilant eye and toward the stealth shuttle waiting beyond sensor range. Similar scenes were playing out across Valkyrie space, critical infrastructure suffering mysterious failures, military communications experiencing inexplicable interference, automated defense systems suddenly reporting phantom targets. No explosions, no destruction, no casualties, just the gradual, inexorable degradation of the systems the Valkyrie relied upon for their perceived superiority. Aboard the stealth carrier Shadow Dancer, cloaked in orbit around one of Valk Prime's uninhabited moons, Admiral Chen received the first reports with grim satisfaction. Phase 1 is proceeding as planned, her executive officer reported. All Spectre teams report successful implementation. Valkyrie response is fragmented and confused. They're treating each incident as an isolated malfunction. Helena nodded. And the civilian infrastructure, untouched, as ordered. We're seeing no disruption to power or life support systems in population centers. Good. Initiate Phase 2, when all teams are safely extracted, and maintain quantum communication silence except for emergency protocols. As the Shadow Dancer's bridge crew carried out her orders, Helena moved to the tactical display. The holographic representation of Valkyrie space was beginning to show the effects of humanity's response, red indicators marking military assets that were suddenly inoperative, communication networks gone dark, sensor arrays reporting conflicting information. Not a single shot had been fired, not a single Valkyrie life had been taken, but the message was being delivered nonetheless. We can reach you anywhere. We can dismantle your defenses without firing a shot. We have capabilities you never suspected. It was a demonstration of force unlike anything the Valkyrie, or indeed the wider Federation, had witnessed before. Most spacefaring races evolved toward direct confrontation, overwhelming force, visible displays of power. Humanity had taken a different path, shaped by millennia of conflicts where asymmetry and subtlety often proved more effective than brute strength. Helena's thoughts were interrupted by a priority alert. A message was being broadcast across all Valkyrie communication channels, one that originated not from their high command, but from Earth's special envoy. In the Federation Council chamber, chaos had erupted. What had begun as routine deliberations over the emissary incident had transformed into something else entirely as reports flooded in from Valkyrie space. Representatives huddled with their aides, urgent communications flowing through neural implants and handheld devices. The Valkyrie delegation was in disarray, their usual military discipline fracturing under the strain of incomprehensible reports from home. Sub-Marshal Krex's scales had darkened with rage as he received update after update on critical system failures throughout the Ascendancy's territory. "This is an act of war," he roared, abandoning diplomatic protocol, his accusatory glare fixed on Ambassador Dre, who sat calmly amidst the tumult. "The humans are attacking Valkyrie sovereignty." The Arbiter raised his hands, calling for order. "These are serious allegations, Sub-Marshal. Do you have evidence that Earth is responsible for these technical difficulties?" "Evidence?" Krex snarled. "What more evidence is needed? Our military installations across 3 systems are experiencing synchronized failures. This coincidence is too precise to be natural." All eyes turned to Lena, who rose slowly from her seat. The chamber fell silent as she approached the central dais, her steps measured and unhurried. "Earth has launched no attacks," she stated, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. "No Valkyrie vessels have been targeted, no weapons have been fired, no lives have been threatened." She paused, allowing her words to settle. However, she continued, her tone subtly shifting. "It seems the Valkyrie Ascendancy is experiencing some technical difficulties with their military infrastructure. Perhaps their systems suffer from the same malfunctions that destroyed the emissary." The implication was unmistakable. Several council members inhaled sharply, their various respiratory organs expressing shock in a dozen different ways. "You admit this sabotage?" Krex demanded. "I admit nothing," Lena replied evenly. "I merely observe that technical failures happen to the best of us. The difference is, Earth's failure resulted in 63 civilian deaths. The Valkyrie failures appear to have resulted in temporary inconvenience." The L3 representative, Naratol, rose from their seat. "The Council must address what is happening. If Earth possesses the capability to disable Valkyrie military systems without direct conflict, their designation as a Level 2 species is clearly inaccurate." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Drakarian representative, a silicon-based entity whose crystalline form refracted light in mesmerizing patterns, joined the discussion. "Perhaps what we are witnessing is not an escalation but a demonstration," they suggested, their translated voice carrying harmonics of curiosity. "The humans are showing restraint. They could have launched conventional attacks. Instead they have created inconvenience." Sub-Marshal Krex slammed a clawed fist against the rail of his delegation's booth. "This inconvenience has left us vulnerable. Our defensive capabilities have been compromised." "Vulnerable to whom?" Lena asked quietly. "Earth has launched no follow-up attack. No Earth military vessels have entered Valkyrie space. We seek resolution, not conquest." She turned to address the entire council. "Earth requests an immediate emergency session to reconsider our Federation status and to establish neutral oversight of the Helios Rift. We also repeat our demand for acknowledgement of the deliberate destruction of the emissary and appropriate reparations." The Arbiter, visibly troubled by the unprecedented situation, conferred briefly with his aides before responding. "This council will reconvene in one standard cycle to address these matters. In the meantime, I strongly urge all parties to refrain from further demonstrations." As the session adjourned in disorder, Lena found herself confronted by an unexpected figure, Strategic Advisor Zell of the Valkyrie delegation, who had separated himself from his agitated colleagues. "Ambassador Dre," he greeted her with surprising composure. "A word if you would." Lena nodded cautiously, signaling her security detail to maintain distance but remain vigilant. "Your species continues to surprise us," Zell said, his inner eyelids flickering in what Lena recognized as a gesture of reluctant respect. "I advised caution in our approach to Earth. It seems I underestimated just how cautious we should have been. The Valkyrie ascendancy has consistently misjudged humanity. Lena replied. We value peace, yes. We pursue diplomacy whenever possible, but when provoked, yes. Zell interrupted quietly. When provoked, that is what I wish to discuss. Grand Marshal Voss is not taking these developments well. His position within the ascendancy hierarchy depends on maintaining the appearance of strength. If he perceives no honorable path forward, the implication hung in the air between them. Are you suggesting the Grand Marshal might escalate rather than seek resolution? Lena asked, keeping her tone neutral despite the gravity of such a possibility. Zell's scales shifted color slightly, a subtle Valkyrie expression that didn't translate well to human understanding. I am suggesting that there are factions within our leadership who would welcome an opportunity to test our more conventional military capabilities against yours, regardless of the cost. Lena considered this information carefully. And why are you sharing this with me, Advisor Zell? Because unlike some of my colleagues, I have studied human history, he answered. I know that your species' seeming preference for peace masks a capacity for total war that few in the galaxy can match. If the Valkyrie force you into such a conflict, he left the sentence unfinished, but the meaning was clear. I will relay your concerns to my government, Lena assured him. Earth has no desire for escalation. Our demonstration was precisely calculated to show capability without causing harm. A sophisticated approach, Zell acknowledged, but one that may be lost on those who understand only the language of direct confrontation. As the Valkyrie advisor departed, Lena immediately activated her secure communication link to Earth. The situation was balancing on a knife's edge, and the next few hours would determine whether the galaxy witnessed diplomacy prevail, or discovered just how thoroughly humanity's peaceful facade had concealed its true nature. In the war chamber on Vulcan Prime, Grand Marshal Tyrek Voss was incandescent with rage. Holographic displays showed the extent of the damage to Valkyrie military capabilities, defense platforms offline, communication networks compromised, sensor arrays blinded. The carefully constructed security architecture that had protected the ascendancy for generations had been undermined in a matter of hours. How? He demanded, his powerful tail lashing violently enough to crack the ornamental stonework behind his command dais. How could the humans possess such technology without our knowledge? General Ixara, her own scales darkened with stress, struggled to provide answers. The attacks show evidence of advanced quantum manipulation, technology we believed was still theoretical. Our systems were designed to detect and repel conventional assaults, not this. And casualties? Tyrek asked, his voice dangerously quiet. None reported, Grand Marshal. The humans appear to have specifically targeted military systems while avoiding harm to personnel or civilian infrastructure. This information, rather than calming Tyrek, seemed to inflame him further. They mock us, he hissed. They demonstrate their power while playing the role of the civilized diplomats before the Federation. Strategic Advisor Zell, recently returned from the council session, stepped forward cautiously. Grand Marshal, if I may, the humans are sending a calculated message. They could have caused significant destruction, yet they chose restraint. This suggests an opening for negotiation from a position of mutual respect. Tyrek's amber eyes fixed on Zell with predatory focus. Mutual respect. They have humiliated the Valkyrie ascendancy before the entire Federation. Our military standing is compromised. Our allies will question our strength. Our enemies will sense weakness. All the more reason to seek a diplomatic resolution. Zell persisted. If we escalate now, we risk silence. Tyrek roared, rising to his full imposing height. The humans believe their clever sabotage will force us to capitulate. They are mistaken. They have revealed their hand without understanding ours.
He turned to General Ixara. Activate the Sundered Claw Protocol. Deploy the Ninth Fleet to the human colony on Proxima Centauri B. Not their mining operation in the Rift, their actual colony. Let us see how they respond when civilian lives hang in the balance. A shocked silence fell over the war chamber. The Ninth Fleet was the Ascendancy's premier strike force, equipped with planet-killing capabilities that had never been deployed outside of training exercises. To direct such firepower against a civilian colony represented an escalation beyond anything the Federation had witnessed in centuries. Grand Marshal, Ixara said carefully, the Ninth Fleet carries the Mo nuclear capability. The human colony has over 300,000 civilians. The Federation prohibits. The Federation cannot protect us from this human treachery. Tyrek interrupted. We will demonstrate that the Valkyrie Ascendancy responds to force with greater force. The humans will learn the consequence of their arrogance. Zell stepped forward again, his stance formal and rigid. Grand Marshal Voss, as strategic advisor to the Ascendancy, I must formally register my opposition to this course of action. Deploying the Ninth Fleet against a civilian target constitutes a war crime under Federation law and risks. Your opposition is noted, advisor. Tyrek cut him off coldly, and rejected. The fleet launches in 6 hours. That will give the humans time to learn of our intentions, and to tremble. As the war chamber erupted into activity, Zell withdrew silently. The Valkyrie Ascendancy had existed for millennia, surviving countless conflicts and challenges. But in all his years of service, Zell had never felt the cold dread that now settled in his four-chambered heart. The humans had shown precision and restraint in their response to the emissary's destruction. The Valkyrie were about to respond with indiscriminate devastation. It didn't require a strategic genius to predict how that imbalance would end. In the secure command center beneath Geneva, Secretary General Okafor received the intelligence with stone-faced calm. The holographic projection showed the Valkyrie Ninth Fleet mobilizing, dreadnoughts, carriers, planet crackers, all converging toward the jump point that would take them to Proxima Centauri. How verified is this intelligence? She asked, her voice betraying none of the turmoil she felt. Admiral Chen answered promptly. Triple-sourced, Madam Secretary. We have confirmation from our deep cover operative within Valkyrie High Command, corroborating data from our quantum monitoring network, and independent verification from L3 intelligence assets. Time to impact. The Valkyrie fleet will require approximately 18 hours to reach Proxima. We've already initiated civilian evacuation protocols, but a complete evacuation would take at least 36 hours. Okafor closed her eyes briefly. 300,000 colonists, our oldest extrasolar settlement. The room fell silent, the weight of the moment settling heavily on every shoulder. Options? Okafor finally asked. Admiral Chen straightened. We have 3 stealth carriers positioned within the Proxima system already, part of Operation Silent Response. They carry our newest defensive systems, but against the firepower of the Ninth Fleet, she left the implication hanging. We could deploy the 7th Fleet from Seoul, General Petrov suggested. With emergency FTL protocols, they could reach Proxima in 14 hours. That would leave Earth with reduced defenses, Chen pointed out. And even combined with our Proxima assets, we would be outnumbered. Dr. Eli Santos, who had been quietly analyzing the Valkyrie fleet movements, spoke up. There's something strange about this deployment. The Valkyrie are making no attempt to conceal their movements. In fact, they appear to be broadcasting their jump coordinates on frequencies they know we monitor. They want us to know they're coming, Okafor realized. They're forcing us to reveal our full military capability to defend Proxima, or suffer an unconscionable civilian loss. Admiral Chen's expression hardened. Madam Secretary, we have one other option. Project Longbow. A ripple of unease passed through the room. Project Longbow was Earth's most closely guarded secret, a weapons platform concealed in the Oort cloud, developed using technology, reverse-engineered from multiple alien sources, and enhanced by human innovation. Its existence was known to fewer than 20 people on the planet. Longbow is untested in actual combat, Defense Secretary Kabir cautioned, and its use would reveal capabilities we've kept hidden even from our closest allies. If we deploy it to defend Proxima, the entire galaxy will know, Chen acknowledged. But the alternative is watching hundreds of thousands of our citizens die. Secretary General Okafor rose from her seat, circling the holographic display slowly. The projection showed the evacuation already underway, thousands of civilians crowding toward the spaceports, emergency vessels launching in continuous streams. The Valkyrie have made a critical error, she said finally. They believe we value secrecy over civilian lives. They believe we will sacrifice Proxima rather than reveal our true capabilities. She stopped, facing the assembled leadership squarely. They are wrong. Humanity joined the galactic community in good faith. We accepted our Level 2 designation, despite knowing it underestimated us. We played by the rules. But there is one rule that supersedes all others. We protect our own. Her decision made, Okafor nodded to Admiral Chen. Deploy Longbow to Proxima Centauri. Maximum defensive posture only. We will not fire the first shot. But if the Valkyrie fleet threatens our colony, you are authorized to use all necessary force to protect our citizens. As the command center erupted into coordinated activity, Okafor turned to Dr. Santos. Contact Ambassador Dre. Tell her to request an emergency session of the Federation Council immediately. It's time.